I also get weirdly self-conscious about the calling everyone crazy people when I'm on a call with someone else because I suddenly realize all at once how weird that is.
All good. We are crazy people, so.
You have to be a little bit crazy to care about this stuff in GameMaker. Hello, all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and all that kind of nonsense. I have with me two other crazy people.
Uh,
Hello.
yeah, I don't know about that.
All right, we got
Um,
we got one sentence in.
I am Xor. My real name's John, but you can just call me Xor. I do shader stuff, and I like GameMaker.
Oh, you like GameMaker too? No kidding.
Yeah, GameMaker and shaders is the way.
My name's Steven. I've been using GameMaker for too long. I might be old. And what am I doing here?
Good luck editing this. This is going to take some work.
Yeah, if you ever want to get revenge on me for anything, just keep this call going for like 3 hours, so that between today and whenever it gets done, I just have to sit there for 3 hours.
I can give maybe a little better. I'll just an option too. My name's Steven, also known as 8bitwarrior, from various places on Twitter and forum and all that kind of stuff. Been using GameMaker for about 15, 17 years, I don't know. And yeah, I'm still here. So I'm looking forward to what's coming ahead.
So about a week ago, Yoyo Games did an update presentation on things that are going to be happening in the near future and also the not so near future of GameMaker. And following that, I sent Steven a message on Twitter asking him if he wanted to scream about said updates on a recording of some sort. And for some reason, he agreed.
Yeah.
And then I also thought about asking Mr. John over here along for the ride because I know he has an interest in all of the certain parts of what was announced.
I love shaders, so I said, yeah, let's do it.
On my notes sheet for this thing, I just wrote down under the graphical stuff to just like be quiet, shut your mouth, and let John do his thing.
Yeah, so where are we starting off? There's tons of content. There's like tons of stuff going on.
Yeah, there are like 4 different ways this whole thing could be organized. How do you want to start? Do you want to start with the simple stuff and then move on to the more advanced things, or
What is the most something that most people would be interested in right off the bat?
so there's a lot of different elements of GameMaker news to talk about, and I guess we've sort of decided to start with probably the items that will affect and be useful to the most people, and that I guess Steven, John, and I have decided to start with the UI system.
Does this excite you at all? Does like on a like for you guys, is this something that seems of like importance to you, or does it seem just more important in general to the community?
I love it personally because UI is always something that I have to throw in after I've started my game or project. I just like I'll make a game or something and then I'll go like especially for game jams, I'm starting some sort of game and I throw everything together and I'm like, oh yeah, I need a main menu. And then I gotta just figure that stuff out afterwards. So it's gonna be nice to have a cleaner way to do that without interfering with any of the other objects or having to place objects in a room the old-fashioned way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of advancements are going to be made in that regard.
User interface stuff is probably the thing that everyone needs to deal with eventually, and most of the time that just involves like someone finishing the game and then writing an entire UI system from scratch. And I don't mind it. I don't mind making game UI myself. I can tolerate it. It's not my favorite, but it also doesn't bother me. But I think it would save a lot of like developer hours for a lot of people to have something that they can just drop in, especially since like designing UI is a little bit of a different kind of programming than gameplay programming, and for a lot of people, it's more like a chore than anything else.
I used to loathe UI development. I actually came to enjoy it. So I'm a little conflicted because now I like making it, but I do understand the pain. Um, my one concern here is I think this is cool, I think it would be a good thing. I know we were mentioning earlier, Michael, you were saying how that Unity still seems to be a little clunky, and I feel like I've seen that with projects kind of like it. The worst case scenario is that we get like more like show message kind of boxes in GameMaker. Of course, that's not happening, but I would hate it if people could look at a game and be like, yeah, that's a GameMaker game just because of the UI system.
Who remembers back in like the 8.x days when there were like 7 different types of show message and you could customize the shape of the OK button and stuff.
Well, that's what show message async is for. It's fine.
I guess that exists.
it's
Yeah, but
fine.
then you have to use the async events, which is infinitely worse.
Fine.
But yeah,
no,
I'm excited about a UI thing, especially like when you imagine like a mobile game where your view is moving around, but you want buttons that are fixed on the screen. So it'd be nice to have like a UI layer or something that you don't need to make an object that follows a camera or set up your own code for scaling and all that. But it'd be cool if there's a system in place that allows you to scale it easily and have it move with the screen if you need it to, especially in 3D games. That would be nice.
And also in a mobile when you have all kinds of different phones with different screen sizes.
Exactly.
And it's not a simple matter of saying draw this icon at like 32 or something.
Right. Yeah. To have something that, and I think wasn't a lot of details provided, but I think what they're planning to do is have a way that it can all scale automatically as you need. So you could set buttons that would stretch if you need them to, or just have the arrangement so there's a button in the bottom right or in the top left, something like that would be really useful. And it would make the process a lot faster.
Most UI systems that I write on my own involve like anchoring an element to a certain corner of the screen, and I imagine that's what it would look like if GameMaker added its own UI system. That's kind of what Unity does, although it's that's a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
But that something like being able to anchor an element to the middle of the screen or to the top left corner or the bottom left corner or something would probably get you most of the way there with all the things that you just mentioned. But we'll see. I don't think Yoyo Games has said anything else that I could find since the initial presentation. So this is still pretty early on, and I'm sure that we're going to be hearing much more about it in the next few months.
Mm-hmm. But either way, UI is an important part of most games. Like even if you just have a pause menu, it's something you have to think about.
Definitely.
So it'd be nice to have a system in place that you can use if you need to. And of course, I'm sure there'll be people that go about it the old way and create their own system. But just having that as an option can't do any harm.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Even if I never end up using it, I think having it there for people who just because that's going to get a lot of people seem to struggle with UI.
Mm-hmm.
That's
for some of us. Yeah.
That's how I feel about like the filters and effects too, is like not everybody wants to go under the hood and do the shader stuff. So it's nice to be able to have that there, especially for like game jams or things where you're just quickly prototyping. You already have a nice selection of effects that you can just add in. And the UI thing should be the same thing, where it's like you can use it and get the job done faster.
Yeah, that's what I've liked about. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, the idea with a lot of the things that were announced seems to revolve around like enabling people to spend less time working on the tedious like structural parts of the game and spend more time working on their game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be a recurring theme with a lot of these.
I mean, at the least, even if we never end up using them, say you needed a game to be like really, really just like unique and different, at the least allows you to quickly prototype things. Like out of the box, being like, I'm just going to use this until I create my own system later.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's GameMaker's cool. strength. GameMaker's strength has always been being approachable, accessible, and you can throw something together. You can go from an idea to an actual game in the matter of days or weeks or whatever. You can prototype really quickly,
or even a couple hours at some point.
What's that? Oh
so
yeah,
yeah.
I did the Minecraft game jam where I had to make Minecraft in 24 hours. It's like it's an actual 3D game and with all the block generation system. It is possible. So I'm glad to see them doubling down on that ease of use.
There's even, I think, like a contingent of people who primarily use other game engines, but use GameMaker to test things in a short amount of time, faster than they could in like Unreal or something.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, especially if you're like a designer on a team and you're not the programmer, but it allows you to like prototype and like, is this fun or not? You know?
And or if you're an artist with a filter effect, does this look good or not, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, something that you touched in on there, John, was sorry, was it John? Sorry.
Yep.
John, yay, we're learning. Okay. You can
I didn't know. I didn't know this guy's name until like 20 minutes ago either. That's okay.
He was just Zor until then.
Yeah.
Because you brought up the GUI layer, and that's something I don't know if we had listed here, but like that seems cool to me. And what I want to know is so the GUI layer seems to be being added to even to the room editor, so you can do like GUI stuff in the room editor, which makes sense.
That would be super useful.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that.
Place things by hand rather than having to hard code the values or anything like that.
You know that we have to use like GM Live for that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
That's what I've been using it for. It's just largely positioning UI elements.
The most tedious part of UI design. Or what some people would do is they would have like an initialization room in their game that would like define all of the UI, and then when the game started, it would go there first, figure out where things belong, and then go to the title screen or something like that.
That seems too reasonable and smart for me. Some of us like the hand code. But what I was wondering is like, with these GUI layers, will they be surfaces, or like are they going to be? Because right now I don't think the GUI layer is a surface. You don't seem to be able to access it. So I'm like, are they going to be a surface or not a surface? And will that have bad implications on mobile development if they are? Because I know that surfaces have kind of hurt.
As far as I understand, it's probably just going to be the application surface as it is now. And basically with the draw GUI layer, it just gets drawn on top of the application surface. There's no surface involved. It just renders on top of it. And I'm guessing they're going to continue to do it that way.
Right.
Right now, the GUI layer, it kind of skips the application surface and goes straight into the frame buffer, doesn't it?
It seems to.
Yeah.
And this had recently complications for me because I was wanting to do a full screen shader or something, and I needed to include the GUI layer with it, and then I actually ended up having to create my own custom GUI layer.
Oh, that's always annoying.
One trick that probably is not recommended, but you can do it, is in the draw GUI event, in the draw GUI event, you can just set the application surface and draw whatever you want to it manually, and then you draw the application surface yourself.
Right.
So you can actually draw to the application surface in the draw GUI event if you need.
Right. And I think I was considering that as kind of where I was at, and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was kind of like, okay, is the GUI layer surface or not? And those are just kind of things that are good to know. And but yeah.
So should we go back to Marketplace first?
Do you want to? I don't even know what there is to say about the Marketplace, except imagine having a Marketplace that isn't awful.
There's one thing I find cool about the Marketplace is the ability to gift assets to other people. That was the main thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is kind of whatever, but that was like, that could increase sales and make it a healthier marketplace.
I don't use the Marketplace currently, but I am curious, is there a way to generate your own discount code?
No.
Okay, so I don't know, it wasn't announced, but that would be interesting. If they're doing gifts, maybe they can do discount codes or something too.
I agree. That gives you a way to promote your assets, and that just seems like another that makes sense. That would be cool. I didn't hear anything about that either, but at least if they can get that idea to them, maybe they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Do you mean like a way to give people like a free giveaway key, the way that you might on Itch or on Steam or something?
Not necessarily free, but you could do like a 50% off thing, share it on Twitter or whatever, a way to bring more attention to your asset.
Okay.
Yeah. And plus giving away keys would be cool too. Like that would be in there as well. You can run a contest and stuff.
And apparently that is coming. I don't remember hearing that, but yeah, if you can gift it, you could still do giveaways that way. That's cool.
Yeah, that just seems healthier and cool because right now the market does feel pretty static and stuck,
Hmm.
and there's still people using it. Like I'll use it periodically, but it definitely, as we can tell from the feature page, like stuff hasn't been moving.
Yeah, that's
And
something, the marketplace is something I do want to get into at some point, but I haven't made the time to do it yet. Um, Maybe, after Marketplace 2.0, I'm going to start adding assets to that. But we'll see what kind of changes are made.
yeah,
There's a part of
yeah,
me
I'm
that feels
excited
like
for it.
I should use the marketplace because like part of its problem right now is that nobody uses it, therefore nobody wants to use it because why would you use a
Hmm.
storefront that doesn't have users? But every time I think about that, I think about how like what a mess the process of actually getting something on it is, and then I think that my time is better spent on itch or on somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I have used Itch before, only for free assets, but I know that it's really easy to set up, and I already have an Itch account, so I've done that. If they can make the process a little bit smoother, I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
And I also think there's quite a bit of taxes taken out with the marketplace, and maybe there's nothing they can do about that. But I know with Itch, they have a more fluid model that I think you can like adjust how much Itch gets back or something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
If you
itch
want to
lets
support.
you define the split that you give them versus you, and then there's still like payment processor fees and taxes and stuff that get taken out,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
there's no
Well,
avoiding that.
Yeah.
maybe it would be good for this is just like totally speculation and just injecting. Maybe it would be good for Yoyo Games to like get away from the 30% cut and go to like a 20 or something lower percent to just kind of
Sure.
bring and
Yeah.
be like, hey, we're gonna do this and kind of as part of their marketing to get it back up and going.
That would yeah, that would
As a
help a
way to
lot
entice people to put stuff on it.
Yeah,
because at that point, the only assets that people well, okay, that's not true. Now that they made the free trial more free, then there could be people that are using the assets without um, supporting GameMaker directly.
yeah.
But I was going to say, with how it was before, where you had a limited free trial, basically everybody using the marketplace are people that have already bought GameMaker and are already supporting GameMaker directly.
Right.
And it just makes more sense to focus more on the market with having a bunch of new free users. Try to monetize them through actual assets to be like, okay, I'll buy this for $10, $15, these really cool things.
Yeah.
Because they get a cut, Yo-Yo Games gets a cut, and the developer
Hmm.
I just think now would be a good time to really capitalize on that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Yo-Yo, if you're hearing, try to go less than 30%, entice those
Hmm.
publishers.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, even if it was 20%, even if you just did a 20, it'd still be good.
Hmm. I agree.
So,
The traditional 30% platform fee is definitely starting to fall out of favor with a lot of people in the modern digital era.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like a tax that you can't really avoid on any of the platforms. Like the Google Play and the App Store, they both have a 30% flat rate, and there's not really any way to avoid that.
Does Steam still do 30% or did they change it?
I don't know offhand.
Anyway, that's the marketplace. It'll be nice to have one.
Yeah.
agreed.
So I guess next on this list that I just wrote up this morning and is in pretty much no particular order is the particle editor.
Yes. Are you guys excited for this?
I am.
I am pretty excited. I haven't used particles a whole lot, but when I have, I'm always happy with them because once again, it's another one of those things where you slap it together quickly and it enhances your game visually.
Right.
And so having a visual editor for that will just make that process even faster. It already feels pretty fast to me, but to
Right.
get the exact looks that you want and all the adjustment, it'll be nice to be able to do that visually without having to run the game and tweak it and then run it and tweak it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Michael, you actually didn't you create a particle editor?
Yeah, I wrote down, I'm glad that GameMaker is doing this so that I can feel less bad about not having maintained it in so long. Also, just like having it built into the engine will definitely make it faster even than an external particle editor, whether that's mine or some of the other ones that people have made, just because you don't have to take it from the editor to the engine. It's already being done and tested in the engine.
Right.
Anything that helps GameMaker visually, where you can just hand edit things and see the results quicker, I think all of those things are a good idea.
Anywhere where you can cut down on the overhead time of transitioning between tools is a good thing.
Exactly.
That's why GameMaker probably should continue to have a good sprite editor, even though it's the one we have now. People have some opinions on. That's why it would be nice if they had some sort of audio editor, because you don't have to
Right.
go back and forth between GameMaker and Audacity to do your audio effects.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and just like that's why I like sequences, because it's a way to edit things visually, and you don't have to hard code everything.
Right.
More things like that are good.
Struggled to use sequences. I know we're not talking about that, but I don't know. I've still yet to get there. But anyway,
I spent like 5 minutes with them on the day the 2.3 hit beta 2 years ago, and then I haven't touched them since.
they seem really useful, but
They are.
Yeah,
I'm just a programmer, so I don't have any use for Adobe Flash timelines.
I was
Well,
kind of
that's
curious
true.
if anybody else was using them, because, to be honest, I haven't really used them much. I have seen what they're used for, and like for intros, that's perfect. But I haven't really done it myself.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It seems promising. I think that's a step in the right direction, because GameMaker should really double down on the um, artistry of it and
Yeah.
not so much on the coding. But I know for me personally, I don't really use it much.
There were, and I assume people are still doing this, but people were actually using sequences for UI and UI animations and stuff like that for some time. I haven't really had that sort of thing on my radar recently, but I assume people are still doing it because it sounds like it should work with lack of better options, such as a dedicated UI system. Anyway,
I think you're right about it being more focused towards, again, the artist side. We are more programmer coder sided. Sometimes there's things in code we know, tricks we know how to do things quickly in code that artists just don't know. So
LERP solves everything.
LERP, yeah. It's like there's just these little tricks that are like a single line of code, and it's like it's done. Why do I? And it's good enough. And it would take me more time in the sequence to make a sequence and to hand code it.
Right.
But it's
But
not
the
going to be
cool
true.
thing about the sequence is that you can have a higher level of control. You know, like you can fine tune the exact timing of everything. You can do curves and things like that. So I think it's more of an artist thing, but I think GameMaker should focus on that, and just, you know, once again, it's not something that we all have to use, but I think it's something that will be useful when you need it. You don't have to use like paths. Before, if you wanted
God
to
forbid.
have some sort of UI element animated, you might have to use a path or something to have it follow a path, and that's just not a good use for it.
If we ever do another screaming episodes, I'll have to find an artist in the GameMaker world.
That's true.
Programmers.
We're all like coders, and we all also like to do graphics programming, basically programming all the visuals and stuff too. So none of us are like into hand animating stuff, I don't think.
No.
That's kind of the problem, is that I'm a programmer nerd, so all my friends are computer science people, and I don't know as many artists. I should expand my horizons a little.
Yeah, but don't worry, we're going to get to the programming stuff more later. Like,
oh yes.
The graphic. I'm excited about that.
Woo.
So, audio?
Yep. Are you guys excited about audio effects?
I think so.
I personally am really excited about that, because I have long since wanted to do like echoes and reverb and things like that. But there's just no way to do that.
Right.
I've always played around with pitch and volume to add a little bit of variety to my sound effects and stuff, but that's all you can do. And so for me, as somebody that likes to program things, I like the fact that I'll have more variables to play around with for audio. And I'm hoping it'll be like reverb and stuff like that. None of that's been announced officially, but I'm suspecting that it will be.
Yeah, they haven't detailed what effects they are going to be adding, but reverb is usually one of the more common ones.
Sure, yeah.
Phalanger is another common one, that sort of thing. Echo.
Hmm.
Um, this is another thing that old GameMaker had, and then I believe when they tried to make it cross-platform, they got rid of it because the old audio system was like Windows Direct Sound or something like that didn't work cross-platform.
Did they actually have like echoes and reverbs?
They did in the 8.8.x days, and I think before
Oh
that,
wow, I
if I
must have missed
can,
that.
if I can like find a screenshot of the old IDE, I'll send it to you. I don't have GameMaker 8 installed on my computer at the moment.
Uh, all right.
It's kind of
Yeah,
funny that like the old GameMaker had like kind of a UI system and kind of a better audio system and a multiplayer. Anyway, it's just kind of coming back
yeah.
years later.
The multiplayer in 8.x was probably not what I would call better. Pretty much everyone who did multiplayer used a third-party extension.
But it worked.
But that is neither here nor there. Yeah, the end-play system had like 5 functions, and none of them were reliable. At least as I
One thing
remember
I
it.
noticed, I noticed this list doesn't say anything about asset generators, or at least not the.
The whole document, yeah, I don't think I did write anything down about that.
Yeah, so that's one thing that's interesting. Once again, we don't know the details yet, but they did mention, a sound generator and a graphics generator. So I imagine you can generate simple textures and sound effects, maybe like BXFR,
Right.
Pretty much
BR.
everyone seems to be picturing in their heads for audio something like SFXR, BFXR, and for
Yeah.
the character generator something like what RPG Maker has, which probably again has its time and place if you want to quickly iterate on something without having to spend a lot of time going between other tools. I'm kind of lukewarm on those. I'm more
Yeah.
interested in the other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My concern would be that it has like a game maker sound to it
Mm-hmm.
where, the certain sound effects you're always going to think of game maker. I
Mm-hmm.
want it to be something where it's very, I don't know, very versatile to the point where it doesn't sound like a particular engine. It'd be cool if, there's a lot of parameters to edit so that each game feels very personal.
Yeah.
If there is something like that, I just hope that people won't overuse it one way or the other.
Agreed.
I believe Russell's exact words in the presentation were nobody likes programmer art. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the angle they're going for is like programmer assets that don't look awful, not maybe necessarily that you'll ship a finished game with, but we'll see.
The other concern I have is that like John, what you're talking about is like locking, because I feel like this has happened with Unity. Is you got like these prefab, like what's it called, prefab swap, asset swap games, um, and it just doesn't seem like a good thing. Like I don't know. That's a strength that I've seen with GameMaker. Is the thing that turned me off early with it was I tried to load it years and years ago and was like, well, what do I do with this? Like it was such an empty sandbox of stuff to do that it gave me no direction. But at the same time, it gave you no direction. Go make something unique and different.
Right.
Um, I mean, including Pokemon clones and stuff at the time, and that was a thing. But
Oh, I've
I
made
mean,
many of those.
like, but you had to go then follow tutorials and do things, and it and that might be why GameMaker has been healthy because it didn't lock you into any specific prefab like preset thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel that, and I'm just hoping that with what they do, doesn't lock the engine into kind of the stereotypes of the engine. Um, but yeah,
For sure.
anyways, we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. Like, yeah, you wouldn't want anything that kind of incentivizes people to make a particular genre. Um, I
Yeah,
know with like Unity, for example, they have like lighting and all these different presets, which are useful. But the problem then is you can, or at least for me, I can instantly recognize a Unity game by the lighting.
right,
The lighting, the shading, it always looks the same. And I know not that many people actually go through and take the time to edit things. So
right,
that's something I think GameMaker is really good at is a blank canvas sort of approach where you have to consciously think about everything you add to the game. You're
yeah,
not just going to use uh, there's no defaults really.
right.
You edit everything, and I think that's one of GameMaker's really cool uh, quirks to it.
Agreed.
It's interesting that you mentioned this now because I was having a very similar conversation with a few other people recently. Yeah, GameMaker doesn't push you in any particular direction with what to make. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it's going to, instead of trying to like encourage a particular genre of game or a style of game, it's going to just give you more tools to like play in a sandbox with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, you can definitely, if you've played enough indie games, tell like this game was made in Unity because it has a very like they use the default physics settings and everything feels very floaty. You can tell if something was made in Unreal because it's got PBR at the nose. Um,
Yeah.
it's very easy to tell if something was made in RPG Maker. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like GameMaker develops a very distinct style because of this. But I hope that like gameplay wise, it doesn't.
Well, that's the thing that I like about. Yeah, I like looking through the announcements and stuff that they made. Basically, none of it is a core system that is a part of every game.
Hmm.
It's all additions. It's like separate modules that you can use in your game or not use. It doesn't
Right.
change the core functionality. And I think that's a great thing because, like I said, no defaults. I don't believe that it's very good to have a default like perspective or default lighting. I think it should all be um, up to the creator. It should be a conscious decision. Not to say that there shouldn't be, better lighting systems or things like that, but it's great when that stuff is optional and it's a choice, and you go through and you consciously add it to your game
Yeah.
rather than it
Right.
being there to begin with.
And it's been nice. It's been because I think a lot of people don't think of GameMaker as like, hey, shaders, this and that. But because we've had to roll our own, it's forced me to have to learn shaders. It's forced
Exactly.
me, and it's been actually a better teaching tool because it doesn't handhold you forever.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I
So
learned like all the programming stuff that I've learned over the years. It all started with GameMaker, um,
right,
because it making a game almost became a game itself for me.
right,
Um,
Hmm.
I I would have a certain idea that I wanted to achieve, and the tools were there. I just had to figure out how to use them, and gradually I learned about programming and eventually got into shader stuff, and the rest is history. Like just having that open-ended approach was very powerful, very very empowering.
That's definitely a common story for a lot of the people who do the graphical shader side of GameMaker. You could definitely just open up a Unity project and make functionally equivalent things to what like Steven and I are working on and not have to ever think about any kind of shader
Hmm.
because you can just throw a cone light on the scene and it's right there. But given that I am using this engine, all of a sudden I know all this math that I never would have even thought to think about
For
if I were
sure.
using something
And
else.
yeah, and then you can tweak it for your exact usage. So everybody's lighting system looks a little bit different, pretty much. Like everybody that creates a lighting system, they will have certain goals in mind. They might have different variables and things like that. It's interesting. Not to say that they, like I said, not to say GameMaker shouldn't have a lighting system that would help jumpstart that. But again, it being an optional thing and not being there by default is it leaves it open ended.
If we were doing one of those iceberg memes for GameMaker, what would you say? The old D3D lighting system that's still there, hidden, would be probably about 2, 3 levels down. Would you say?
Yeah, it's pretty deep down there. I don't know how many people actually have even heard of it nowadays, or use it. I wouldn't recommend using it personally.
It's another one of those like if you're really in a time crunch for a game jam, you could use it. But
Yeah.
if you're
are they still there?
they're still there. They've been renamed to GPU set directional or GPU set point or GPU set fog or whatever.
Okay, because I did use the D3D functions back in the day a little bit, but I didn't. Yeah,
They're
okay,
literally just there for compatibility, as far as I know. Like, if you've
Hmm.
used it before and you port the game over to the new version of GameMaker, it's just gonna rename the functions, but it will do the same thing.
And yet they deprecated D3D smooth shading. I'm sad.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
where are we?
I think we were in audio.
yeah. We
We
kind of
were in
went.
audio. Did you want to mention the licensing thing? That was
Oh, right. So Fmod is a proprietary third-party entire system. I don't know if it's considered a middleware or like a complete audio engine or technically what that sort of like software would be, but they are owned by a another company, and there would have to be. I don't know if GameMaker struck a deal with them to like allow them to use it in GameMaker. I don't know if it's going to be like if you try to use an MP4 video in your game, you need to pay the licensing fee yourself. That's going to be something that anyone who does use Fmod when it gets added to GameMaker is going to want to think about. I think if I recall, the Fmod system itself has a couple different parts, and some of them are like free, and if you want to use the more advanced things, you have to pay them. Perhaps GameMaker is just going to implement the basic stuff and stop there. But this and audio effects are something that people have definitely been persistently asking for a long time, particularly audio engineers who work with GameMaker.
right. I guess that's like the shaders of audio, kind of, or something. Like, would
Yeah.
it be the equivalent, kind of that power?
I
So
don't know if Fmod lets you write your own audio filters, which would really be the equivalent of shaders compared to just like fixed function pipeline stuff, which would be like basic effects like reverb, but that would be cool as well.
well, I guess you can already program like the audio buffers.
I
Maybe there's,
guess.
but that's beyond what I know. So
I'm not
yeah,
even sure if you can edit a sound that you've already loaded. As far as I know, with audio buffers, you have to basically create something from scratch. Maybe there is a way to load it, but I've never looked into that.
right.
I
And
used
it
them like
also,
once. I don't really remember much of it. I know someone in a long time ago. I don't remember who. Someone wrote like an SFXR like program in GameMaker using audio buffers,
yeah,
but I don't know how far you can take that.
and it does take a little bit of time to generate sounds as well.
GameMaker is not the
It's not
fastest
like a
of
real
programming
time
languages.
thing. Yeah, it's not like you could just like real time create different
Right.
reverb. You almost have to pre-generate the different reverb values. At least last I knew of, that's how it worked.
Right.
Is there anything else audio related? I'm not like the biggest audio expert, so I can't go on for as long on
That's
this as some people
all
could.
that I know of.
Have any of you ever used the like the user extensions for like OpenAL or Fmod in the past for GameMaker?
I have not.
No.
There are a few like separate individuals who made extensions for that sort of thing, and it was interesting. Uh, Sounds good, but again, and we're gonna probably keep coming back to this. Having it built into the engine would save time for developers.
And how many platforms were they supporting? That was the trouble. Like, it might just be Windows or this, and then if you're trying to do any other platforms, that you're kind of locked in.
I think the
So
Fmod one was for Windows, Apple, and Linux. I don't remember if Apple was only Mac or if it was also iOS.
mm,
Certainly not like
yeah,
PS4 or Xbox.
right. So that's the problem, is you can go all in with this sound stuff, and then you try to do a console launch, and then you just don't have the support.
Yeah, you'd have to
Mhm.
rebuild it for that platform yourself, and then that's hard, and
It's the-
then
yeah.
so on and so on.
I'd prefer not to depend on those sound effects from the start and build
Mhm.
it all for the lowest common denominator. So
Let's see, what's next? The action library?
yeah, what is this?
This one, I don't think I've seen people come to a consensus on what they think it is. My first thought was it would be an input manager, but the way that the way that it was described in the presentation was a little weird.
A bit vague, maybe.
I don't know if either of you have talked to Juju Adams about his input thing or about some of the other people who've done input managers for GameMaker in recent days, but Mr. Adams did say that he doesn't think it'll obsolete his input system, and I don't entirely know why. I didn't like ask him for more details. I don't know if that's because actions are going to be more like.
I think my understanding of it is the action library will allow people to remap keys a lot easier and set up different configurations for different devices. And Juju Adams' system is more generalized, and so it already has specific configurations for different device controllers and the dead zones, and um, it's a lot more precise and fine tuned. Whereas I think the game maker thing is just designed to be kind of open ended and just allow you to create an action and assign it a key, and you can remap that to any, like a game controller button or something like that.
That
That's
could
how I
be.
understand.
I kind of wish there was more information about this now, because this is the sort of thing that might affect the way that I like design stuff prior to its release, so that when it comes out I could just like add it without any hassle.
For sure, yeah.
The one thing that's coming to mind is I think they were discussing, I think Russell was mentioning in the video about being able to attach those actions then from like a certain controller to like an object instance or something.
Hmm.
So I guess you could then like assign the controls from one object and then swap it to another. Let's think of a game where you have like multiple characters that you're swapping between control, and then you're like saying which one you want to have control of. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around how.
Right. And then that also has applications in the old school, like shared screen multiplayer. Like if you have multiple players on one screen, sharing a keyboard, one object can have the WASD keys, another could
Yeah.
have the arrow keys, something like that.
Oh, it's been so long since I thought about those games. Yes.
I still love those. So, it'd be cool to have something like that.
That's another possibility.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking of like the Lego games when you're swapping between different characters.
Right.
And is that anyways.
So the long-term support or long-term service versions of GameMaker, I think long-term stable was what they chose to have LTS stand for. Is that something that you guys would find useful, or do you guys like having the new updates come out on a regular interval?
I'm personally happy that it's there, but I probably will not use it much because I always want the latest features. I'm happy it's there because, like, if I'm going to be releasing a game and I know what features I have currently, it's not a good idea to just keep changing things while you're developing a game.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a long-term stable version of GameMaker that you can rely on, and you don't have to worry about new bugs or anything like that or features changing. You just make it work in that version, and that's good enough. So it allows you to plan a little bit more for the future without having to worry about changes. And also collaborating on projects will be easier.
Right.
If you're using, GitHub and co-working on a game, you can make sure that both people are on the same version and you don't have to worry about major updates changing anything. So I think it's a good idea. I probably won't use it much unless I am working on a game that for a long term, like a larger game, then I might use it.
Right.
Yeah, likewise, I'm not excited for it personally because I like the newest features and experimenting with them and playing with them. But the difference is I'm not dealing with, not all of us are dealing with publisher deadlines. This seems to be affecting people who have you guys seen on the forum? People are like, oh no, the update broke and my game has to be out in 2 weeks and there's a publisher
Right.
involved.
All the time.
And so it seems to be for those people. For those of us who don't have publisher deadlines and we can extend our game by 3 months to 3 years because, feature creep and whatever. But for those people, it's probably a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
Once again, my understanding of it is it's a separate option. You can still use the newer updates, or you can have that. Hopefully, you can have both versions at the same time. So you can have a long-term game project that you're working with the stable version, and a separate version of GameMaker just for the updates and the new features.
and the beta channel as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess it would be 3 different versions, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm pretty sure that's how they're going to do it. So I'm happy for it. You can't go wrong with another option.
That was pretty much all I had for the LTS version. Also, this is something that other game engines and also software in general have. Operating systems often have long-term support versions, just in case you're running a business and you really need something to not change and break. Unity has recommended versions that they tell people who are like far along in a game's development to use because they are reasonably sure that nothing will go wrong. GameMaker games tend to have quicker iteration times because GameMaker tends towards smaller games, but there are definitely people who work on things for the long haul. And this probably won't be doing much for most people, but the few people who will have use for it will be very, very happy.
It also reduces the temptation to keep adding new updates with every new feature that GameMaker adds. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that
if you
too.
have an input edition, it's tempting to completely rewrite your game to use the new system, but you don't always have to do that.
Yeah.
And so, if you build your game in the stable version, hopefully it will incentivize people to stick to something that they're comfortable with and just finish a game and make more games.
And maybe tune out the noise of having all these things added and testing and breaking and that kind of thing.
The fun part.
The fun part. Boy, I've never seen that error message before. Exciting. All right, Mobile GXC.
I like this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I've heard people talking about how it could be used as an alternative to the App Store or Google Play Store. It will be its own separate place to play games.
But what is it? For those who don't know, what is Mobile GXC?
As far as I know, it's basically you take the Opera GX browser, which is a specialized gaming browser, and there would probably be a mobile version for that as well. And so you have one app that you can use to play a variety of games, all the GXC games. So hopefully it would be easy enough to create a normal GXC game and then port it over to the mobile GXC market and kind of get a benefit of both worlds. The big concern there is that there won't be that many users on it, and I'll have to see. If it is a separate app, not many people download different browser apps, so there might not be a huge market for it.
If I'm correct, I believe they were saying that you could use any browser on your phone.
Okay, and if that's the case, then that would help significantly.
And that would mean, I believe that would mean that Apple or Google couldn't block them.
Okay.
The idea, because then it's like, no, it's just working with web tech, and they would actually have to stop,
okay, yeah,
web
that
tech on your
makes
phone.
a lot more sense.
I actually didn't think about that. That's a really good point.
I think this is the problem, because if I'm correct, when Sandy Duncan still owned Yoyo Games, I believe they were trying to do this with, remember how they made that marketplace built inside GameMaker itself for games?
What was it called?
What was
The
that called?
Yo-Yo Sandbox or the Yo-Yo something like
Not
that?
the sandbox, but it was like the actual store.
I remember they were like an actual bona fide publisher for a while. Maybe not a while, but for some amount of time.
They actually had the store you can go in, like a Steam kind of store, kind of their own thing. You go in, you buy the game through there. And it was actually
GameMaker Player.
Yes,
the player.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I believe I think what I believe what the idea was to actually get the GameMaker Player app on phones, so then you could buy the game on your desktop, but also play it on your phone through the app. But I think there was problems probably with Apple and Google to get that through, and I think that died there because of, they wouldn't be a fan of that. But now because the web tech's come so far, how can you stop that if it's all through the web?
Yeah, and especially if they can make it so that it's a website and not an app, so you can play all the GXC app, all the different games without having to download a separate browser, because they could block a browser, And the other thing too it'd be interesting if there's some sort of in-app purchases type of arrangement where you can make purchases that don't involve the App Store or Google Play. So that would be less of a cut for the developers, less of a cut taken out for the developers.
Yeah. I was kind of lukewarm on this because I don't like playing games on my phone, but you two mentioned some pretty good points. So it should be interesting to watch.
To be honest, have either of you guys done iOS development?
I have not. I've heard it's awful.
I have not yet, and the reason is because I don't have a Mac to test with, but I have done some Android stuff, and eventually I do want to branch out into iOS.
So the iOS development part is, I do not like it, and to this day, it is not something. Yeah, so I remember I used to do it years ago, and I would put a game up on the store, and then 6 months later or a year later, I need to go back and update it, and I have to relearn again. What am I doing? Do I have this or that? And it was not a good experience. Um, Enough that I really, really don't want to do it. So if I actually would be okay with putting my game on GXC. So people who do have iPhones who want to try my game, yeah, you can play it on GXC. If you really, really
Mm-hmm.
want to on iPhone, it's on GXC. What about the store? Nope, not doing the Apple Store. Nope.
Right. Yeah. And you don't
The,
have to worry about it's almost inherently cross-platform. You don't have to
yeah,
worry about making separate versions, separate builds for each store. That's
yeah.
that's a great point.
Apple is
And
rather
especially if they
notoriously
tie,
difficult when it comes to publishing stuff on their store and updating stuff on their store.
yeah, if
And
they tie it in with the separate GXC stuff, so that you can have like PC GXC games like for the Opera browser, and also a separate mobile market, and they kind of connect the two, then they might actually be able to get a decent amount of players
yeah, if you
out
can
there.
just flip a switch and have like two separate configs for like the screen size, for one for mobile, one for desktop, and they can just coexist without having to like have separate build paths and build tools and stuff, that would be very,
Yeah,
very useful for developers to have access to.
Yeah. If it's done right, if they invest in this, I'm not wouldn't be. I'm kind of leaning towards this could be successful.
I've heard the GXC has more users than I sort of thought it would. Um, I have like three different things that are like 50% finished, ready to go on the GXC, but I haven't like bothered to sit down and finish them yet. Um, but I've heard that people who have posted stuff on there have had a decent number of players.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen. I have a couple things up there right now, and got a decent number of plays on both of them. Like I would say they've exceeded expectations. Um, and there's other games doing better than the ones I have up on there. So if mine are doing okay, then that's kind of a good for being really early in beta in the platform.
Yeah,
It
it's only
actually
been
seems
like
quite healthy.
what, 6, 7 months.
and
Yeah,
I've been planning this game for a while that I wanted to be web based. So, but I also wanted to try to branch it out and have separate apps for it, for iPhones and Androids. But
yeah,
now I'm strongly considering, after hearing about this, I'm strongly considering looking into GXC, making it for GXC instead of HTML5, and then hopefully being able to port that over to the mobile version as well.
yeah.
So yeah, that does propose a lot of potential, a potential market there. There could be a lot of good things in there.
It could at least be a launching point for
Yeah.
mobile testing and being like, is this working or not working? People liking it, not liking it, and
Hmm.
if you get traction there, it could validate whether you
Yeah.
should pursue more dedicated platforms.
I'll be looking forward to the news and hear what else is coming out about it. But I'm definitely interested.
Yeah.
It's also just GX just generally performs better than HTML5.
There's a caveat there.
Really?
Yeah, so one of the tools that I build, I do a benchmark, and I'm able to get on my desktop with the HTML5, the JavaScript build, like 40 to 50,000 instances of a certain test. On the GX with the VM GXC, I get like 4,000.
Really?
I get like 10% the performance. But that is on a code level. That's not. I don't know about the rendering. That's on like code. So like I'm seeing like huge difference now. But also that tool I built, it may be really optimized for JavaScript, and so like the Google V8 engine might be able to really optimize it. But I'm seeing a huge discrepancy at the moment. But I have not yet got the YYC to work for Opera GXC. So that could be a huge game changer, and I haven't got there yet. But as for the VM one, it's quite a bit of difference in performance for just raw code crunching, number crunching. So,
That's
but anyway,
interesting.
it's fine enough for a lot of stuff. But I've definitely noticed it being there and being like mindful of. But once I get actual YYC build working for GXC, that might be different. But we'll see.
I'll have to do more like stringent A/B test HTML5 versus GXC.
Yeah. Again, that's not rendering. That's just like the code itself. So.
And also, HTML5 is somewhat notorious for weird and stupid errors that I have yet to encounter in GX.
Oh no, GX has been really stable for that.
Yeah. Usually, if something breaks in GX, it's something that was shader related, going from Windows to OpenGL.
Yeah.
But like the gameplay stuff just works.
Yeah.
One fun fact is that HTML5 is the one platform where you can actually use GLSLES with multiple render targets.
Didn't it get enabled in Windows in GLSLES for a while? Did that stop being a thing?
Not that I'm aware of. Well, okay, yes, it was, but unintentionally.
It was unintentional.
It's not something. Yeah, it's not something that I think people should rely on, but it is definitely interesting. But yeah, for the longest time, it was only HTML5 that worked.
I've been thinking about using that in GLSL and Windows because I like to live on the edge, but I've not actually done it yet. But anyway, yes, HTML5 does allow you to do that, and I've been told it also supports vertex texture sampling, and nobody else does for some reason. All right, I don't know. We've been doing this for like an hour. I don't know if you two want to start to get a little less sidetracked and move along faster.
We might be here for a few hours if we keep at this.
Who needs to eat? For Steven, it's still the middle of the afternoon. For John and I, it's getting a little late.
I can go for hours. Yeah, no.
And we haven't even gotten to the big graphic stuff yet.
We haven't even gotten to the new runtime stuff, which is where all the fun things are.
You know what this could happen? Might it be beneficial to break this up into 2 videos even?
Do you want to?
A lot of content?
I could do that.
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of content here. If we want to break it into 2, it might just work.
Yeah, that's up to Dragonite because that would be more his. It would be more work on him.
I can do that. We're like a third of the way down the page now, and it's been an hour. I was joking when I said if you wanted to waste my time, we could drag this on for 3 hours, or at least I thought I was.
Well, if no, I'm good with either. I'm good. It's on you guys.
Yeah, Michael, it's up to you. It's up to you.
I do need to make dinner for people at probably 6:30ish, which is like an hour from now. So it might be better to do that.
Okay. Do we want to do set it like a finish here on a topic or something for now, or?
Do you want to do the immediate stuff now and then the new runtime stuff later?
Yeah. That seems good.
And the stuff that's in the more imminent future for GameMaker, there's the multiplayer things. There's prefabs, which nobody knows anything about, so that probably won't take long. And triggers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the new runtime stuff could actually be kind of more complex and more of a kind of like.
Yeah, that's probably going to be even longer anyway, because there's there's graphics stuff in that section anyway, which is going to be like an hour on its own.
And it's just gonna be Xor talking.
I could get rambling about all the new shader stuff. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to
it. What's that?
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, that'll be fun.
All right, multiplayer and rollback. Do either of you do online stuff, online gameplay?
Nope.
I want to though. I've had some ideas that I want to do. So this is actually kind of good for me because I don't have. Multiplayer is not an area that I've really jumped into to figure out. So this, but there's some light multiplayer ideas I want to test out. So this seems really my ballpark of interest right now.
It's very conveniently timed.
Yeah,
I have done quite a few prototypes. I haven't finished a game or anything, but I have experimented with multiplayer stuff in the past. And one of the big issues that I kept running into was lag management and things like that. So I'm interested to hear about the rollback stuff. And then also they're just going to make multiplayer easier. And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll still be able to use all the old networking functions if you want to, but just having a system place to make it more accessible and easier is always a good thing.
Again, coming back to this theme of making developers have to spend less time with the structural stuff and letting them spend more time with the gameplay stuff.
And I think that's great. And what I'm liking about GameMaker is some people were wondering, is this going to replace the existing network functions? And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still that under the hood network stuff there if you really, really need to customize things, which is great. And I'm really liking that. It's like, okay, here's this initial layer that makes things really accessible, but there's still this second layer that you can go into to really tweak things even further.
This is going to supplement the existing networking stuff, right? So if you want to just send I don't know, send a chat message from one user to another, you could still just put the string in a packet and send the packet over the network the same as you'd always do, but you could also have the advanced things for things like predictive input, which is basically what rollback is, or I think they mentioned a few other things like handling disconnections and that kind of thing. I'll have to look at the list again.
Right. Now imagine a thing for like a game jam. I can now go to a game jam and potentially maybe I can actually do multiplayer in my game jam game. I got 48 hours to make something, and well, you got multiplayer working? Well, yeah.
Yeah. GameMaker has always excelled at game jams because of how quickly it is for prototyping ideas. And things that double down on that will make a huge difference. I remember there was some game jam where somebody created a multiplayer component to the game. So it wasn't like completely multiplayer where you could see other players, but you could actually leave messages that other players could then find later.
Right.
And so it was like the Dark Souls kind of multiplayer.
Yeah.
Actually, Dark Souls has like regular multiplayer too, but they also have the social message systems.
Yeah, but it was really interesting because people were highly impressed that they were able to fit that in a jam game. Right. So, being able to do that for any game jam will make GameMaker games stand out even more, I think.
No, the irony is you say that GameMaker excels at game jams. I've been to like a 200 in-person game jam before. And I'm there using GameMaker and I'm like, is there anybody else?
Well, that's a fascinating thing is GameMaker doesn't represent the largest market, definitely not. Unity's probably the biggest thing. But when you look at, there were statistics that I looked at a few years ago, and it showed, what percentage of the top 100 games, what game engines they used or whatever. So, GameMaker was some percentage. They were each whatever percentage. And then you go down to the top 10 games, and GameMaker represented, I think, the majority of the games. So it was disproportionately higher ranking. Even though GameMaker users are not as common as other engines out there, they actually do better in game jams. And I think it's because it doesn't take as long to set things up. You come with an idea and you prototype it and you get it out there. And again, talking about what we were talking about earlier, there's no defaults really. So the originality is self-evident.
Right.
More of the games are original.
I gotta say, when my experience with these big game jams in person, when you do find someone else using, you're peeking over people's shoulders. See, are they using GameMaker? That looks like GameMaker, and you're like, hey.
Yeah.
There's like one, maybe two other people in this crowd, and you find them, and then it's kind of fun.
I've never done an in-person game jam, but that does sound like a bit of fun.
Yeah, it can be fun. I'm getting old now, so now I'm kind of past it. But they're good once in a while.
Yeah.
So. You pull out the sleeping bag and sleep on the floor.
I did a global game jam once. That was fun.
Was it in person?
Yeah. This was the one before the pandemic, and then it was like I'm sleeping under a desk, and then someone comes in and tries to put their computer on the desk, and I crawl out and whoa, where did you come from? There was a forum thread on the Ludum Dare forums that still comes up in my Google searches once in a while from like 2012 that's like, can we ban GameMaker? Everyone's using it. And fortunately, I don't think they've done that.
No. It's too effective.
Yeah.
It's too good. That's actually a good problem. That kind of is pointing towards it actually
I always think I think that's GameMaker's strength and I've used a variety of game engines over the years, and none of them like have that same appeal as GameMaker does to me. And I love the fact that GameMaker doesn't set up 3D for you. You know, I
Yes.
like 3D stuff. I like to do 3D stuff, but it's not like everything is done for you. It doesn't hold your hand.
Yeah.
It lets you set things up, and so every time I make a 3D game, it's different. Every project that I start, I come at it with a new angle, and it keeps it fresh and original.
Yeah, that's forced me to be like, whoa, I can do this. I can do this.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and you get access to these things that are like that can create this really unique look, or
Yeah.
touch back to an older style that people haven't really thought about for a long time, and you realize, oh, this is why they did this kind of technique back in the day, or the N64, PS1.
Sure.
Um, and that's been, yeah. I have it's a little of a tangent. Sorry. Have either of you ever used Torque 2D or Torque 3D?
I have not.
I
That
have
is
not either.
going back a little bit farther than I've been doing computer science stuff.
Yeah. No, never mind. Maybe I won't go there. But yeah.
I almost did once, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, no, we won't go there. But for anyone out there who's used Torque or Torque 3D, leave in the comments, please, your experience with that. I just for my curiosity. So, and how you think it compares to, because that was an engine where like there was no built-in editor for it, like, and I actually bought a third-party tool to do editing for Torque 2D. But then, anyways, that's a whole tangent.
The
It's a
early
whole
days
tangent.
of the
I'm not gonna,
indie game scene.
I'm not gonna. I actually used GameMaker first, and I jumped to Torque 2D for a time because it was one of the first ones to have like mobile development. And then I did a game or two with that, and I came back to GameMaker. So
I've used GameMaker, I've used Unity a decent amount, and the comparison that I usually come up with is that like when I'm trying to do something in GameMaker, I usually have to Google how to do a thing in GameMaker, and when I'm trying to do a thing in Unity, I have to Google how to make Unity stop doing a thing, which I find infinitely more annoying.
Exactly.
And if you're certain types of developers will definitely prefer that because certain types of developers have a particular, I don't know, game that they want to make, a third person over the shoulder camera perspective, and you can set that up reasonably fast in Unity. But I like to wander around a little bit in the space of the code. That might not be the best metaphor that I could come up with. I'll have to think of something later.
No, yeah. I lost my train of thought. Where are we at now?
I think that followed off of the multiplayer and rollback.
Okay. So we're on the prefabs.
Yeah. Does anyone know what these are? Because this is like the main thing that before we jumped on the call, I was looking through the forum posts to see if anyone had anything to say about, and I didn't see anything about these.
I have some thoughts on it. So, like prefabs, what I'm thinking is like right now, I have a feeling that you're going to be able to have a list of like a library of these prefabs, like so say like a 2D, a basic 2D platformer controller. Like for example, they have that new 2D platformer coming out example project.
Like
And
from
I'm
one of
wondering,
their template projects, you mean?
yeah, so like the woodland creature one, whatever it was called.
The
Um,
not
I,
Mario.
yeah, the not Mario. Yeah, furry Mario. Um, he, I'm wondering if that like that platformer character is going to become like a prefab, so you can like put him in a scene or something. But then you would need like other objects to work with him. So I'm a little bit conflicted. I don't know exactly.
There was not a lot of information given, so yeah, we'll kind of have to see where it goes from here. I think.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the part of the presentation where they had this on the screen, and it sounds like sequences and the UI system will use prefabs are like the most concrete thing that it says about it. So
Right.
UI, I could definitely see where you would use a prefab for that.
So are they gonna have
But
like preset like transitions and you put in your own title card or something
yeah,
and
like
kind
a
of
preset
stuff?
transition or a default like button that has a particular look or something like that.
Right.
I'm not. Other than that, I'm not sure what you would do with this. In Unity, it makes sense because like game objects are just containers that you like duct tape and zip tie scripts onto, and GameMaker it
Right.
doesn't work like that. Um, there would be no point in saving an object for later because that just is the object.
Yeah, there seems to be this kind of conflict, right? At least at the moment with like traditional game maker, it's like trying to bridge this concept from what's already there
Mm-hmm.
to where they go. It's kind of like, okay, what is this? Because yeah, I don't know.
It says filters and effects are our initial version of this, and I don't know about YouTube, but when I think of the filter effects, I do not think of like prefab like template objects. So that makes me kind of wonder if they just named these badly and they're actually doing something else entirely.
Yeah, or they're just going to be more versatile than we expect them to be.
That could also be.
It might be the easiest to explain them through those first, and I have a feeling there's more coming, but it might make more sense later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. They are pushing that's going to go more into the new runtime stuff we'll discuss later. But they are moving more towards object oriented. So when they make that push, will prefabs make more sense in an object oriented environment? I'm not sure if that makes sense what I'm saying, but I don't know. Maybe.
I guess the other thing it could be is like you have your variable definitions window that you can assign properties to per object per instance, and maybe you could like save a variable definition, like a set of variable definitions for a type of object. But if that was the case, I feel like it would say that.
Maybe. Well, so at the moment, with GameMaker, you either have stuff in your project or you don't. You either have source code in your project or you don't. So I'm wondering if prefabs will also be a way to have like a library of things that you can work on, but they're not actually in your code. So that could save time on like compiling and different things, and
Possibly.
just it keeps things out of your project while being a part of it as an option. Um,
Like
those are
having a
just some considerations.
precompiled scripts or precompiled something else.
Yeah, or just not having it in your project altogether and being like having it there when you do need it, but if you don't need it, you do remove it, and it's not actually in your project being compiled every time.
That's
So it
possible.
could save just if you got like this massive, so say like for Scribble or these larger libraries, you're actually using them. What if they're there but not there?
And
And
like
then
when
you
you're
can like
putting it on source control, you don't need to add 600 scripts related to four different extensions to source control. And
there's more, yeah, more options there, I guess. We'll have to see.
I kind of feel like I shouldn't open my mouth about this too much until more information comes out because I don't want to like start a rumor that people latch onto that turns out to not be accurate at all.
You don't?
But on the other hand,
Well, blame.
that's what the fun is.
Yeah.
Um, and that hasn't stopped me before. So
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it because I don't know. There's not much public information out there about it.
We'll have to wait and see.
all right, the last thing on the list before all of the new runtime items are triggers, which I like the sound of. I don't know about you two.
Yeah, triggers sound quite interesting. Probably what they're mostly going to be used for is things like cutscenes. You know, my understanding is it's something that you can place in a room to activate any sort of action or something. So if you enter a scene, maybe you can have it activate a cutscene or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Or if you
So
walk within a certain distance of, I don't know, a door or a monster or something, then some sort of sequence happens, some cutscene
yeah,
or something.
it's going to be good for the things that are individualized and unique for each uh, instance of it. So it's not like something that you would use an object for, I don't think, like collision boundaries or anything like that. You're going to use it for something that is completely unique that only happens once,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need to create a separate object for it. That's my understanding of it.
I think
Um,
one collision example that could work though as a collision kind of is like say that you had like a lava pit or a poison in this area that the player walked into, and that could be if you detect that you're in there, then you're going to take damage.
mhm. Yeah.
That could be one like more directly like gameplay related,
Hmm.
because they are going to support like polygon shapes as well apparently. So if you're able to like lay out this area that if as long as you're in here, you're taking damage or not taking like that kind of thing. So
Right. So I think it's basically like a collision boundary that is not linked to any particular object necessarily. It's just something that can activate or cause some sort of action but you can place it in each room individually. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it gets used, but it's likely going to be for something that you wouldn't use an object for. You know,
Right.
something that, because if you have lava, typically how people do it is they'll have like an invisible boundary object that they put over top of it. Maybe you'll use a trigger instead.
I don't think triggers are going to add anything that you couldn't do before, but again, it will speed up time. The way that you would have done something like what you said with the lava example would be that you would have to create an object and you would have to put it in the room at the correct position, and you would have to write code specifically for that object to like burn the player or whatever. If you wanted to have a zone where the player like triggered a cutscene when they walked into it, you'd have to create an object, and then you would have to have that object initiate the cutscene. And then if you had multiple of these in every map or in every game, you would have had to duplicate a lot of that or give it an ID of some sort, and it just would have been a lot of tedious, annoying work.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's what it's for, the stuff that you don't want to repeat. You know, it's going to be great for story games or like linear games where you have a specific thing that happens only once. And so you can activate it with a trigger.
And I'm guessing too that it will tie in nicely with the room editor. So there's more room editor work that you can do.
Sure.
Again, for just that workflow could be better.
There's that. Anything that's like specific to the part of the game world that it lives in, like if you have an area where the player walks into an enemy spawns or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential uses for this.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how people abuse these new systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always the things that I expect people to do with something, and then there's always the things that they actually use them for.
Yeah.
Like when sequences came out, I immediately thought, okay, Adobe Flash. And then people started suddenly using them for like UI animations.
Right. Have you guys ever considered like a long time ago, this is going off the beaten path, but like actually using GameMaker's animation tool for like when there was like Flash game animations, being like, can I use GameMaker for like stuff? But then I had to like send people like EXEs to watch my cartoon or whatever. So
yeah,
it got a little
that's
better
like a
when,
security risk
when the HTML5 export came out, but then you had to deal with the HTML5 export.
When it works, yeah.
I did have that thought. I've never like done anything with it because I'm very much not an animator.
Mm-hmm.
With
I've
that
used
said, what
the sprite editor for creating sprites and stuff before, like for GameMaker Studio 1 more. Like the sprite editor was pretty good for making animations and stuff.
it was, yeah, I miss that editor. I do.
There are things that I like about the new sprite editor, but
it's half done.
It's
or
weird.
It's like
it's
70% done.
Yeah, the fact that there's only 2 effects in it right now shows us limitations. Now, that was one of the things that they announced, is that they're adding filters to the sprite editor.
You want to wrap up with like the UI overhaul and the workspace overhaul and stuff? Would that be a good place to leave off?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a quick thought. Do you think the GXC could ever have like a Flash animation type of like category? Right now it's all games. What would stop them from having like their own like people putting shows and using that as for that?
I feel like if enough people started doing that, they would.
I'm just wondering if it would be like helpful for there to be kind of like a put it there, because once you like put it as a category, people will maybe jump on it.
Try to make something to go in it.
And you can get a whole nother category of animators and people. Anyway, it just feels like something that could be tapped into that may not really been thought of yet. Because it feels like it's almost there, especially with sequences. What if that happens? Anyway, that's whole major speculation.
But yeah. The whole IDE by the sound of it is going to get an overhaul, which I'm sure will make a lot of people happy.
Yes.
Yeah, if you look at the roadmap, they have like, 5 different, I can't remember the exact number, like 5 different IDE changes that they want to go through. Like the broom editor needs to be changed, a sprite editor, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
The inspectors that have been coming out gradually are supposedly for that. They're okay for certain things on their own right now, but they're supposedly going to be related to the big whole hog IDE update that's going to be coming.
They really feel disjointed at the moment. They don't.
Right now, it's like, okay, if you want to see a little bit of extra information about a font or about a audio clip or something on the side without having it be a workspace, they can be.
The thing I like about it is that it integrates perfectly with like the IDE, like the docking and all those things.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that they mentioned with the workspace update is that you will be able to dock more things to other things. And you won't have the workspace chains that are just floating around weirdly. Right
now, how it works is it's like separate nodes, but it's not even something that needs to have nodes. You open an object and then you have events, and they make it look like a node graph, but there's no adjusting of the nodes or anything like that. So I would much rather a more like code focused IDE. And get rid of the workspaces as they are.
I'm not like hugely bothered by the IDE as it is right now, which I think makes me somewhat unique at the moment because everyone else seems to hate it with every fiber of their being. But the idea of workspace elements being chained together is really kind of weird because when you open a script from another script, they don't have anything to do with each other. You just happen to open them in succession.
Right. Yeah, there's just needless links between things, and then you have to scroll around, and sometimes you have to scroll around horizontally and vertically, and sometimes you lose things. Like if you open a bunch of different windows, and it's just this big, long mess. So I do hope that they can find some way, and perhaps that will be through inspectors, but a way to reorganize things and make editing less painful.
Yeah.
One of the advantages that the Studio One and earlier versions of the IDE had were that everything was just a window and you could put it wherever you want.
Anywhere.
And given how much bigger GameMaker is now than it was then, that might not work as well anymore, but it was a simpler time.
It's been a frustration not being able to like move a window to the second monitor. And that has to be part of another workspace, and it's just like,
Well, you could have two workspaces, and you could have one on one screen, one on the other, and you could be stuck between them.
I've tried, but then I go to open an object in the one, it's in the wrong, and it's just I've tried to make it work.
Oh yeah, that's true. It does do that.
And I've just been like stuck with one for the most part. I've tried probably a few times, and it hasn't ended. I keep going back to just one workspace. So.
I think that was one of the things on the roadmap for a while is better multi-monitor support, but I think they might have broken that down into the separate IDE related things.
Yeah, I'm excited in general to see where they go. I'm hoping for them to do things that I didn't even expect them to do. I just look for something, more code focused, being less confused over what tab I'm in or over So
like the default right now is if you open code, it just links it, using like the node graph kind of thing. It links it to an object. I always change that so that it opens in full screen because I'm mostly doing code now, and I don't like that whole workspace thing. But if they can find a way with they're adding code inspectors as well, maybe everything will be more like full screen editing and adjusting that way, and I would much prefer that.
Yeah, agreed. Do you guys ever open up in the object editor and then you hit variable definitions and it like widens your do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't go back.
It doesn't go back. Anyway, we could just have like an hour of like just talking about.
Well, they have 5.5 years of complaints about the IDE to analyze, so hopefully they're able to do something useful with that data.
Unfortunately, I have to get going here, so is this a good spot to wrap it up, or?
I think so. We will come back to do more screaming about the far future new runtime stuff.
I really want to talk about the shader stuff at some point.
Yeah, you were the first person I thought of when I saw that come up in the presentation.
For sure. That's I call it the shader update. That's going to be coming out later, but there's so many things in that one. It was just one slide of the whole thing, and there's just so much to dig into and so many potential uses for it. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully we can do another video and talk about it in depth.
Well, it's a year until that hits beta, and then who knows how long it's going to be until it hits stable. So we've got time.
Sure. Yep, we got time.
I don't know if you guys want to come back this time next week or later in the month or something like that. But we'll figure it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
My schedule's pretty flexible. So.
Well, thank you, Michael, for hosting us, and good speaking with you, Stephen.
Yeah, likewise.
That was fun to have a little chat.
All right, I hope I'm able to cut this together into something coherent.
Yeah, good luck with that. Sorry, it ended up being almost 2 hours.
Is there anything else? I guess I feel like anyone who's been around my channel for any length of time knows who Steven and John are, but if you want to just say your usernames or something like that again.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at XorDev. I post like shader stuff mostly, and I love 3D and GameMaker, as you probably know.
And yeah, again, my name is Steven, and you can find me most on Twitter. The handle is 8bitwarrior, and that's where I'm most active and all that kind of stuff. So I post GameMaker stuff on there and things. So
unless anything goes horrendously wrong, I will have links to that in the description of the video.
All right.
Depending on what you two decide to do, this may also be going up on your channel, in which case this whole thing will be a little bit odd, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, sounds good.
I will see you all later. I need to go eat dinner, and I guess John probably does as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good, guys.
Good speaking.
Yeah, good time. Until next time, you guys.
All right, see ya. Good speaking with you too, Stephen, for the first time.
This is the longest goodbye.
We'll have to talk some more. Yeah, maybe next time not on recording.
This is the longest goodbye.
Yeah.
All right, I'm leaving.
All right. Yeah, see you guys.